Avatar: The Last Airbender is considered to be the greatest animated TV show of all time, not just because of how fun it is to watch, but also because of how carefully crafted its world, its characters, and its themes are. From its world building to its characters to its emotional depth, the series set a standard that very few shows have been able to replicate. But even masterpieces aren't perfect. Like any long-running show, Avatar did have its moments where it fell short sometimes, it could have gone further, explored deeper, or even taken a slightly different path. So in this video and the ones that will follow, we're just going to analyze some of the missed opportunities in the Avatar franchise, starting with Book 1 Water, and then going to Book 2 Earth, Book 3 Fire, and then getting into The Legend of Korra, and hopefully getting into Avatar 7 Havens. First missed opportunity that I have is Katara and her waterbending skill and waterbending mastery. She starts the show as the last known waterbender of the Southern Water Tribe, carrying the entire weight of her culture's responsibility on her shoulders. And there's a deep sense of responsibility that Katara possesses, along with a lot of grief and a lot of anger that she doesn't really fully understand at this moment yet, right? But she isn't born into mastery. She doesn't have a teacher. She didn't have former scrolls or traditions that were passed down to her. Everything that she knows in part 1, at least for the majority of part 1, or book 1 rather, is self-taught and learned through trial and error. And it's almost entirely fueled by frustration. The Fire Nation and her circumstances, the loss of her mother, and even at herself is what drives her forward. And early on, the show does a great job of showing this, but later on in book 1, sometimes her growth just feels at times very rushed. By the time that the gang reaches the Northern Water Tribe, Katara's progress skyrockets to another level. We're told that she trains constantly, but we only see brief montages of sparring with Aang and training on her own. We rarely witness extended failure. There's no period where Katara gives it her all, and it's still not enough. And I feel like that's a huge missed opportunity. Because imagine Katara struggling with waterbending techniques, or even the northern waterbending techniques that contradicts the southern style. You know, the southern style which stems from, survival. It's more adaptive, it's more emotionally driven. Meanwhile, the northern water tribe style is much more rigid, it's much more structured and deeply traditional. We could have seen Katara overcorrecting herself, trying so hard to conform to northern standards that she actually gets worse before she gets better. We could have seen her confidence shaken, not because she lacks talent, but because she's starting to question the reason why she bends and how well she does it. And that would have reinforced one of Avatar's themes, one of them being that raw talent only gets you so far in terms of bending. You look at Aang, he was a waterbending prodigy, but because he lacked the right mindset and the right discipline to truly master the art, at the end of the series, Katara was able to catch up to him and surpass him. True mastery requires patience, it requires humility, it requires the willingness to be a student again, even when you've already proven yourself. And number 2, that bending isn't just a physical skill, it's a reflection of who you are emotionally and spiritually. Katara did resemble these two themes, but had we focused more on her struggle, then her eventual success within the art would have felt more earned. The second missed opportunity that I have is Yue as a waterbender. Now, Princess Yue is one of the most important characters in Avatar, and she's probably one of the most spiritually, in tune characters that we see in season 1. But yet she barely gets to exist as her own person, really. From the moment that we meet her, Yue is defined entirely almost by her role. She's the chief's daughter. She is engaged for political reasons, and eventually she's revealed to be directly connected to the moon being herself, right? Her identity is shaped by destiny long before she even gets to make real choices of her own. And that's exactly why I feel that it's such a missed opportunity that Yue was never explored beyond those labels. Given her spiritual connection to the moon, the very source of waterbending, it would have made perfect sense for Yue to actually be a waterbender, or at the very least someone with a deep intuitive, understanding of water and its flow, even if she wasn't allowed to practice waterbending due to the Northern Water Tribe's rules. That restriction alone could have added layers to her character. Imagine Yue secretly training Katara at night away from the rigid rules of the Northern Water Tribe, teaching her techniques that she learned through observation instead of actual combat practice, or passing down knowledge not based in combat techniques but in understanding and balance and patience and in spirituality. This would have done several important things at once. For example, one thing that it would change would be to strengthen Katara's growth by giving her a mentor that understands both tradition and restriction. It would have given Yue a more active role in the story, allowing her to shape events rather than just simply to react to them. And most importantly, it would have made her sacrifice feel a little bit more personal. Instead of Yue's death being a tragic necessity for the world, it would have also been a personal loss for Katara, a teacher, a friend, and a source of wisdom that was taken way too soon. Rather than just becoming the moon, Yue could have lived on through Katara's bending philosophy, influencing how she approaches water not just as a weapon, but as a living force. The third missed opportunity that I have is Sokka and Yue's relationship. One of the most iconic relationships in the franchise is between Sokka and Yue, and although that it's short-lived, it's actually very powerful. And the problem isn't that it's rushed, but the problem is we don't get enough quiet moments between the two. Most of their scenes together are framed by the urgency that the war is approaching, danger is on its way. And while that tension works narratively, it leaves very little room for stillness, moments where the two characters can just be themselves and exist as characters, not as just symbols of sacrifice or responsibility like they are in the regular canon. Simple conversations about their fears, the lives that they're expected to live versus the lives that they want to live. Yue struggling with destiny, and Sokka, someone who's always felt overlooked as a non-bender, finally feels seen, truly seen by someone else. These moments would have slowed down the story. They would have grounded it. Besides his mother, Sokka losing Yue is his first real encounter with love and loss. It's the moment that forces him to mature emotionally and accept that not everything can be saved by just clever plans or by bravery. A few more laughs, a few more moments under the moonlight adds a clearer sense of what Sokka is losing, not just a person, but a future that was never allowed to exist in the first place. Losing Yue shapes how Sokka approaches love, leadership, and sacrifice as the rest of the series goes on, and with just a little bit more time, their relationship could have hit a lot harder than it did. The fourth missed opportunity that I have is the North Pole. Now, the Northern Water Tribe is one of the most important locations in Book 1, probably the most important location in Book 1, yet we don't really spend so much time really experiencing it. This is the cultural heart of waterbending, the most advanced and preserved version of Katara's heritage. It's the place that she dreamed of reaching her entire life, and it represents mastery, it represents hope, and belonging for her. Visually, the city is stunning. The ice walls, the canals, the moonlit snow, but once that spectacle wears off, the story moves on pretty quickly. Soon after they arrive, the siege begins. The Northern Water Tribe stops feeling like a living city, and it starts to take on the form of a battlefield, if you will. We don't really get enough time to really dive deep into the daily life, the traditions, or really the internal politics of the Northern Water Tribe. And without that, the threat of destruction loses some of its emotional weight. If we had spent more time in the Northern Water Tribe learning about the people, the families, the students, the elders, the Fire Nation's attack would have felt less like a military defeat and more like a potential erasure of an entire culture. The fifth one that I had is really small, but I felt like it could have been a lot more meaningful, and that's Katara and Sokka exploring the outside world. When we first see these two characters, they have not seen the outside world outside of their small village in the Southern Water Tribe. But Book 1 very rarely paused to show just how overwhelming the first glimpse of the wider world actually should be. Massive cities, foreign customs, different people, and powerful benders everywhere. Realistically, it's a lot to take in. And it's kind of like Rey landing on Takodana for the first time in Star Wars The Force Awakens. One moment she's on a quiet desert planet, and the next she's near a bustling castle filled with new people, different technology, and a new way of life. The scale, the wonder, and the fear realistically would all hit at the same time. And seeing these moments for Katara and Sokka, pausing to show their awe, their unease, would have really emphasized how small their world really was compared to how quickly it was going to expand. It would have made their journey feel bigger, more immersive, and more emotionally impactful. The sixth missed opportunity is another small one, but it has to deal with Avatar Korra. And the reason for that is because it's Book 1 water. If you notice, in Book 2 and 3 of Avatar, we see some flashbacks of Kyoshi, and we also see some flashbacks of Roku, where we see, more of Roku. And I feel like Season 1, since it is Book 1 water, we should have had a little bit more Karuk in there, especially because we get an appearance of Ko the Face Stealer. And if you don't know about the history of Ko and Karuk, I suggest you guys just hop into it. I'm not going to explain it in this video, but I feel like it'd really be another, cherry on top for the season, where we get to see a little bit more of the past avatars, especially because the last 3 avatars had an effect on the world, which all culminated up to Aang's day. So we know the consequence of Kyoshi and Roku, and I feel like Season 1 should really, gone into depth about the previous water avatar behind Aang, which was Avatar Karuk, and his effect on the world before, Aang even came into existence. The 7th missed opportunity is Admiral Zhao. Now, To be honest, Zhao works perfectly as the show needs him to be. He's ambitious, he's ruthless, and he's laser focused on glory. He really fits the villain of the week theme very well for the show. And he pushes the story forward and creates, real stakes for Aang and the team, especially with him being the one to harm the moon being in the finale of book 1. But there's untapped potential in highlighting him as a true threat. We mostly see his arrogance and his cruelty, but we don't really see the actual danger that he possesses until the end of the season. A few well-placed scenes here or there showing how close he comes to catching, injuring, or even outsmarting the gang, attacking different civilians, exploiting his own soldiers, and coming up with clever plans would make him feel more of an immediate and relentless threat. But Zhao doesn't really need a tragic backstory. He doesn't need to be complex. I think he's perfectly fine the way that he is, but I also understand why some fans would like to see him, do, or would have liked to see him do a little bit more. Now, the final missed opportunity that I have is Aang's waterbending training and the fact that it ties with him running away. Now, in Book 1 Water, Aang's training with water is pretty much smooth sailing, which I feel like is a missed opportunity in terms of growth for Aang. And even though we don't really talk about the Avatar: The Last Airbender movie, or rather the Last Airbender movie, one thing that I did like from the movie is that Aang actually struggles to learn waterbending because of his emotion, because of his emotional baggage. Now, showing that emotional baggage or an emotional turmoil or inner conflict can block the mastery of an element seems like a really interesting idea, and that's something that I feel like should have been expanded on more. Aang in season 1 is at the height of his guilt, the height of his grief, and the weight of his responsibility as the Avatar. Yet his waterbending rarely, or it doesn't even reflect that type of turmoil, especially because water is the element of change. A few moments of real struggle where his progress stalls or he gets frustrated with learning this element would have tied his bending directly to his emotional state. And later on, when the Fire Nation arrives at the North Pole, the setup is perfect. This could have been the moment where Aang is tempted to run again, mirroring his abandonment of the air nomads and his duties as the Avatar. A brief hesitation of running away, followed by him choosing to stand his ground and protect those in the water tribe like he wasn't able to protect his own people, would have powerfully shown how far Aang has come since the season started. And not just learning waterbending, but also learning how to take on the responsibility of the Avatar. That choice would have made his stint at the North Pole feel far more meaningful, in my opinion. And that's all that I have. Those are the missed opportunities in Book 1 Water of Avatar: The Last Airbender. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that these are valid? Do you think that some of these don't really make any sense? Do you think that the series is perfect the way that it is? Or do you think there are some things that they could have expanded upon? Whatever the case, be sure to let me know in the comments below. I'm hoping that I can make a series out of all the books. That way I can have like a whole playlist going with all the missed opportunities of Avatar. That's gonna do it for today's video. So until the next video, hope you guys have a good one, and I will catch y'all later. Peace out.